Hey there. Once again, I am Jesse Dollemore, and I host the podcast, I Doubt It with Dollemore. Listen, we'd love for you to both subscribe to the YouTube channel and the podcast. We're on iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play Music, wherever you get your podcasts. We have a mantra on the show about moving the conversation forward. We think it's important, and we'd love for you to join us. Look, before we get into this, I want to establish that which is obvious. I don't think it's any surprise. I'm white. But I'm not this kind of white guy, or this kind of white guy. I'm more this kind of white guy. Well, being white, I don't sit here attempting or pretending to speak for or represent black people or their plurality of views. While I live in the Los Angeles area now, I grew up in a very white town inside of a very white state with a whole lot of very white people. So I don't claim to explain or even understand the black experience in this country. All I can do is wrap my arms around an earnest attempt at love, empathy, and compassion. What I do sit here as, other than a guy doing an awesome impression of a 6'3" leprechaun, well, what I do sit here as is a frustrated, sad, and sometimes angry American. In case you've not been watching TV or been disconnected from the internet the last few days, we continue to live in a nation where different rules seem to exist for Americans who look like me than they do for Americans who are black. I submit to you the tragic case of Philando Castile. He was recently pulled over by a police officer, a government employee, a public servant, for a broken taillight. Again, for a broken taillight. The criminal record-free Philando, apparently, he did the right thing by alerting this supposedly highly trained public servant that he was in possession of a legal, registered firearm. This public servant then asked for his identification, and when he reached for it, this servant of the people pulled his handgun and killed him with multiple rounds to the chest at what was practically point-blank range. There was no mistake made, no crime committed. Hell, there wasn't even a weapon brandished. Actually, let me restate that, because there was a weapon visible that struck fear into the heart of this highly trained peace officer. It was Philando Castile's color, his melanin. It was on full display. He had not only brandished, but unknowingly weaponized his blackness in such a way that this skilled public servant freaked out under the crushing weight of distress and effectively, summarily executed him. With his fiancée sitting right next to him in the passenger seat, and a toddler only inches away in the back seat. What is wrong with us, America? Equal justice under the law is protected by the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. I think understanding this problem is the first step in addressing and solving it, though. Look, it's no surprise to clear-thinking people that we still have a problem with race in this great nation. Or at least a problem of how the races perceive one another, especially when the perception we're talking about is how cops perceive black men. From 1999 to 2011, 2,151 whites were killed by peace officers. In that same period, 1,130 blacks were killed. Now, before you bigoted, racist YouTube trolls get all excited and think I'm proving your point for you, let's factor in that white Americans make up a whopping 63% of the country, while the U.S. is only comprised of 12 or 13% black Americans. Further, a study published by the American Journal of Public Health found that death rates at the hands of peace officers was more than 3 times higher for blacks than for whites. And to this day, black Americans are fully 30% of those killed by government-employed officers of the law. And I'll say it again because it bears repeating, they're only 13% of the population. In 2015, the Washington Post reported that there were 990 fatal shootings by peace officers. Of that number, almost 93 involved people who were unarmed. And black men accounted for about 40% of the unarmed people fatally shot by police. Now, adjusting for that 63% versus 13% number, that means unarmed black men were 7 times as likely as whites to die at the hands of government-employed public servants. Look, I'm not saying all police are bad. Of course, all police aren't bad. But all police are human, and humans go about their days with baggage and bias, both implicit and explicit. We need to do a better job of not just hiring better cops, but a better job of not hiring the bad ones. Because Black Lives Matter. We need to make some changes. And let me tell you, if unarmed whites were being gunned down at wildly disproportionate rates, you can bet your ass there would be all kinds of outrage and protests and even stupid YouTube videos like this one to address it. Listen, thanks for listening and for ultimately helping move the conversation forward. We appreciate it. Hey, if you're really a glutton for punishment and you want some more of this, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel and the podcast on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks a lot.